Welcome to Stellar Plots, where every story has a twist. Let's dive in.
It started with a pop. A sound so small, almost funny, like a champagne cork flying. But then came the gasp. A sharp collective intake of breath from 100 of my husband's most important colleagues. I looked down, and my world, or at least the designer gown he'd forced me into, was literally coming apart at the seams. I felt this sudden, terrifying draft on my skin. The cool air of the ballroom was nothing compared to the fire burning in my cheeks. My husband, Mark, just stood there, frozen, his face a perfect mask of fury and humiliation. He thought this was my end. He had no idea it was the beginning of his. So how does a wardrobe malfunction become a declaration of independence? To get that, you have to understand the man I was married to. To everyone else, Mark was the whole package. Handsome, charming, and ambitious as hell. When we first met, I found that ambition intoxicating. I really thought we were a team, ready to conquer the world together. But somewhere along the line, his ambition soured into control. It was subtle at first. He'd suggest what I wear, but frame it as a compliment. "You look amazing in blue. You should wear that dress tonight." Then he started suggesting which friends I hang out with, quietly painting my best friends as bad influences. Before I even knew what was happening, my life was being curated by him. I'd given up my own career in graphic design to be his support system, a move he called a partnership. But it wasn't a partnership. I was just another one of his assets. Our gorgeous house didn't feel like a home. It felt like a golden cage. The life of luxury he gave me was just a silken leash, and it got a little tighter with every expensive gift. I was his trophy wife, something to be polished and put on display, then stuck back on the shelf when he was done with me. My own opinions, my dreams, they were inconvenient. They didn't fit into the perfect life he was building, so he just edited them out. This was not just another work party. Mark had just landed a job at a huge investment firm, and a massive promotion was on the line. Everything depended on impressing his new boss, the almost mythical Mr. Harrison. For weeks, that's all I heard. How we had to be perfect. How I had to be perfect. "I really don't feel up to it, Mark," I told him one night, about a week before the party. My anxiety, which had gotten so much worse under his constant judgment, was through the roof. He didn't even look up from his phone. "It's not optional. This isn't about you. This is about my promotion. You show up, you look good, you smile, you network. It's one night. You can handle that, can't you?" The way he said it made me feel so small, like a child. He made it crystal clear that my feelings were just an obstacle. So I did what I'd learned to do. I swallowed my anxiety and just nodded. A few days later, a designer box showed up. Inside was the most over-the-top dress I'd ever seen. A floor-length sheath of shimmering midnight blue silk, just dripping with beads. It was also a full size too small. When I tried it on, I could barely get a breath in. "It's a little snug," I said, trying to sound casual as he walked into our dressing room. Every seam felt like it was stitching me into a life I didn't want. And I had this crazy, fleeting thought, I wish it would just rip. The ballroom was stunning, all chandeliers and crystal, but I couldn't enjoy any of it. The second we walked in, Mark was on. He grabbed my hand, his grip a little too tight, and started parading me around like a show dog. He'd introduce me, laugh way too loud at some bad joke, and then shoot me a look, a silent command to smile and do the same. I smiled so hard my face hurt. Finally, it was time. We were called over to the main table to meet the man of the hour, Mr. Harrison. Mark was practically buzzing with nervous energy, laying the flattery on thick. Mr. Harrison, though, wasn't what I expected. He was older, with a calm, observant way about him. He shook my hand, and his eyes held mine for just a second too long. It wasn't creepy, like he could see right through me. He saw the tension behind my smile. As the night went on, the dress became my own personal torture chamber. The beating was scratching my skin raw, and I seriously couldn't take a full breath. I leaned over and whispered to Mark, "This dress is really starting to hurt. I think a seam is about to go." He shot me a look of pure disgust. Don't be so dramatic. Just smile. He's watching. And then it happened. Mr. Harrison was about to give the big speech. Just before he went up, Mark yanked me to the front of the room, right next to the podium, for a photo op. "The company photographer is right there," he hissed. "This is it." The photographer lifted his camera. Mark threw his arm around my waist, pulling me in. The flash went off, and I instinctively shifted my weight. That's when I heard it. It wasn't a small tear. It was a complete structural failure. The main seam on the side of the dress, from right under my arm, all the way down to my thigh, just gave up. Pop! A huge panel of silk just fell away, exposing the entire side of my body to a room full of people. For a split second, it was dead silent. The camera flashed again, capturing the absolute peak of my humiliation. Can you even imagine that feeling? That pit in your stomach? That desperate wish for the floor to just open up and swallow you? If you've ever been made to feel small just so someone else could feel big, do me a favor and hit that like button. It helps to know I'm not the only one. And subscribe if you want to find out how this complete nightmare actually ended up saving me. In that frozen moment, I looked at Mark. I saw a tiny flicker of concern, but it was immediately wiped out by a tidal wave of rage. His face twisted. He didn't move to cover me. He didn't shield me. He just stood there, glaring at me like I just lit his career on fire. But someone else did move. Mr. Harrison, the man Mark was so desperate to impress, didn't hesitate. He immediately took off his own suit jacket and wrapped it around my shoulders, covering me from all the staring eyes. He leaned in and said quietly, with no judgment in his voice at all, "Are you all right?" He then motioned for his assistant to get me a car. Mark saw this simple act of kindness, and something in him just snapped. He grabbed my arm, his fingers digging into my skin, and dragged me to the side. "You ruined everything," he hissed through clenched teeth. "How could you be so stupid? You did this on purpose." And right then, hearing those words, feeling his grip, something changed. The shame just vanished, and it was replaced by this cold, hard clarity. 10 years of being made smaller, of being controlled, of being silenced, it all came rushing back. I looked him dead in the eye, and my voice wasn't a shout, it was a knife. "You're right," I said, loud enough for people nearby to hear. "I am done. I'm done being your prop. I'm done being your pretty accessory. This whole night was for you, Mark. Everything is always for you. Well, here's your big moment. Enjoy it." I yanked my arm out of his grasp. I turned my back on him, clutching Mr. Harrison's jacket around me like a suit of armor, and I walked out of that ballroom. I didn't run. I walked, head held high, leaving Mark all alone in the wreckage of the perfect life he was trying to build. The next few days were quiet. Mark never came home. I packed his bags. I heard through the grapevine what happened after I left. His public explosion of anger. The fact that he showed zero concern for his wife. It didn't go over well. Turns out Mr. Harrison was a man who cared more about character than connections. Mark didn't get the promotion. In fact, after that night, his career at that firm was dead on arrival. About a week later, while I was meeting with a divorce lawyer, I got an email. It was from Mr. Harrison. He apologized for intruding, but he said he was impressed with how I'd handled myself under pressure. He also said he'd done a little digging and found my old online design portfolio, the one I'd given up on years ago. His company was launching a new project and needed a strong brand identity. He wanted to offer me the freelance contract to design it. Reading that email, I felt a spark I thought had burned out long ago. It was a chance. Not just a job, but a chance to get back to the person I was before I became Mrs. Mark Sterling. I took it. I poured every ounce of my creativity and frustration into that project, and it was the best work I had ever done. Looking back, that dress exploding wasn't a disaster. It was a catalyst. It was the loud, messy, spectacular end to a quiet, suffocating life. The humiliation was real, but it was temporary. The freedom that came after? That's permanent. Today, my life is my own. I run my own design business. I live in a smaller apartment, but it feels more like home than that mansion ever did. I'm not standing next to anyone to feel important. I'm just standing on my own 2 feet. And let me tell you, the view from here is incredible. The biggest lesson I learned is one I'll never forget. Don't ever make yourself small for someone else. Your worth isn't determined by who you're standing next to. It's determined by the strength you have to stand alone.
Thanks for listening to my story. It's not an easy one to tell, but it's mine. If you have a story about taking your power back, I would be honored if you shared it in the comments. Let's lift each other up. Don't forget to subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one.